Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're looking at something quite unexpected. When you think of Taekwondo, you probably picture elite athletes, lightning-fast kicks, and intense, high-stakes competition on a global stage. But today, we're stepping completely beyond the mat. We're going to explore how World Taekwondo has systematically transformed a combat sport into one of the most incredibly cost-effective and powerful tools for global peace and humanitarian aid. It's a fascinating look at how international sports organizations can actively change lives in the most vulnerable communities on Earth.
Okay, let's dive into this, because the numbers here tell an incredible story about World Taekwondo's modern identity. Across the globe, they boast a massive 209 member national associations. We're talking about a presence on virtually every single continent. But it's that crucial, beautiful +1 at the end of the equation that we're really focusing on today. That +1 stands for the refugee nation. It's this powerful, literal declaration that those who have been displaced, people who have lost their homes, their nations, their flags, they still have a defined, celebrated place within the global Taekwondo family.
So here's our roadmap for today's explainer. We'll be covering 1. The +1, 2. Empowering the powerless, 3. Hope in Rwanda, 4. The first black belt, and finally 5. Global recognition.
Now, what's really interesting about the slide is how we get into Section 1, the +1.
As World Taekwondo's global prestige has grown over the last decade, especially after a really deliberate rebranding at the 2017 World Championships in Muju, Korea, well, so did their ambition to tackle the global refugee crisis. And that ambition materialized into the Taekwondo Humanitarian Foundation, or the THF. Established in Lausanne, Switzerland, this charitable initiative is the actual engine behind that +1 we talked about. Their core mission is beautifully focused, to empower refugee children worldwide through the martial art of Taekwondo. But, it's not just about teaching them how to block and strike. The THF utilizes the sport as a vehicle to teach good global citizenship, discipline, and core Olympic values. They essentially provide the institutional framework that takes this lofty humanitarian goal and turns it into boots and bare feet on the ground.
Moving right along to Part 2, Empowering the Powerless.
Leaving the boardrooms of Switzerland behind, we can really see how this works in practice. In May of 2017, World Taekwondo President Chungwan Shui visited the Merkazi refugee camp in Obak, Djibouti. He didn't just send a delegation, right? He went there himself to see exactly how Taekwondo could assist the 1,500 Yemeni refugees living there. During this reconnaissance trip, President Shui noted the absolutely intense heat of the region, and he made a firm commitment. He promised that World Taekwondo and the THF would build indoor sport facilities so these young refugees could actually learn, train, and play in comfortable, safe conditions.
So, the crucial point is that behind every institutional pledge, there are local heroes making it happen every single day. And that brings us to Coach Asif Sabah. He's the local Taekwondo coach at the THF Azraq Academy in Jordan, working directly with Syrian refugees. Coach Sabah has actually noted that dealing with traumatized kids who have been through unimaginable hardships, well, it isn't always smooth or easy. But his core philosophy is crystal clear. He wants to give these children something that will bring them back some of the hope they've lost. He uses the sport to refine their personalities, build trust, and give them a tangible anchor of hope. It is a relationship based entirely on love and respect.
Which takes us to Section 3, Hope in Rwanda. Shifting our focus over to the African continent, we find the Kiziba camp. This is Rwanda's oldest refugee camp. Established back in 1996, it's currently home to over 17,000 Congolese refugees who fled war and instability. To put that into perspective, 77% of the population there are women and children. Seeing this massive need, the THF partnered with the Rwanda Taekwondo Federation, and since April 2017, they've been running a fully functional academy right inside the camp. They host 3 daily classes for 180 incredibly eager kids, allowing them to engage in playful physical activities and really soak in the discipline of the sport. World Taekwondo's reach extends even further through the Taekwondo Cares Project. This brings training to places like the Mukiza Primary School in southern Rwanda, where 60 boys and girls participate. Now, keep in mind, World Taekwondo also hosts made-for-TV, Hollywood-style Grand Slam events with massive prize money. But when you contrast that elite glitz with the grassroots effort of Taekwondo Cares, it highlights a massive advantage of Taekwondo as a humanitarian tool. It is incredibly cost-effective and exceptionally easy to deploy in developing nations. You don't need expensive gear or massive infrastructure to start changing lives.
That brings us to Part 4, the first black belt.
And this brilliantly illustrates the rapid, life-altering impact on an individual level. Let's follow the journey of Wael Fawaz El-Faraj. Born in Syria in August 2002, he eventually found himself residing in the Azraq refugee camp in Jordan. In April 2016, at just 13 years old, he started taking classes at the newly opened THF Azraq Academy. He practiced relentlessly, not just in class but on his own time. And by November 2017, which is just a year and a half later, he took part in a grading test with local Jordanian students, finished at the head of his class, and earned the very first THF black belt. Absolutely incredible.
Seriously, earning a black belt in 18 months under camp conditions is a staggering achievement. But what Wael did next represents the absolute ultimate goal of the THF, sustainability. When President Chue heard of Wael's achievement, he expressed his hope that in the fullness of time, the student becomes the teacher. And guess what? That is exactly what happened. Wael now uses his free time to teach Taekwondo to the other children living in the Azraq camp. The program doesn't just impart skills, it actively generates its own future leaders.
Finally, Section 5, Global Recognition.
Pulling back to the macro perspective, this grassroots success has actually garnered some serious financial backing. A staggering $100,000 donation was made at the 5th Fujairah Open Taekwondo Championships in early 2017 by the Crown Prince of Fujairah, and that went straight to the Taekwondo Humanitarian Foundation. Why? Well, because as he stated, the global refugee crisis is one of humanity's greatest challenges. He recognized Taekwondo as an economical, easy-to-deploy tool that delivers self-discipline and genuinely upgrades the lifestyles of refugees. This kind of financial backing is absolutely crucial to ensure these long-term, sustainable programs can continue to grow.
Let's move to and see how this builds into an even larger international framework. In December 2017, at the inaugural board meeting of the newly created Olympic Refuge Foundation, World Taekwondo President Chu was appointed directly to the board. Sitting alongside IOC President Thomas Bach and the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, Filippo Grandi, this appointment places World Taekwondo's humanitarian efforts at the absolute epicenter of the global Olympic movement's philanthropic arm. It's a huge deal.
The sheer scope of World Taekwondo's network is massive. They are certainly not doing this alone. By forging powerful partnerships with the UNHCR, the Olympic Refugee Foundation, the International Organization Peace and Sport, and even the Seoul Broadcasting System to build Hope Schools, World Taekwondo has truly legitimized their efforts on the world stage. These partnerships provide the critical infrastructure and the funding required to expand these life-changing programs far, far beyond their initial pilot phases. Which brings us to our final thought. World Taekwondo has proven, undeniably, that a sport doesn't need to be terribly expensive or require massive infrastructure to make a profound difference. Through the simple, low-cost mechanics of Taekwondo, they are literally restoring hope, instilling discipline, and creating leaders in the most vulnerable places on Earth. So, the question we really have to ask as we conclude this explainer is this. Look at what the Plus One has achieved. How can other global sports organizations look at this exact low-cost, high-impact model, step off their own mats, and bring the same level of hope to the world's most vulnerable populations? It's a fascinating question, and one I sincerely hope the sporting world continues to answer. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, and I'll see you next time.